Okay, so today we are talking about reflections, and the objective is I can identify, describe, and perform reflections of figures. Okay, so before we can kind of get into actually looking at reflections and doing reflections, we need to describe a reflection. Okay, so a reflection, which I think we all kind of know, is a flip, okay, which means it's a transformation. And if you remember on the translations day, we talked about different kinds of transformation, and this is a rigid transformation because it keeps the same size and shape, which we saw in activity number 1. Okay, so a transformation in which a figure is reflected in a line called the line of reflection. Okay, so the line of reflection is the line over which a figure is reflected. Okay, so if I'm reflecting over the x-axis, okay, the x-axis would be the line of reflection. Okay, so example number 1 says, tell whether the blue figure is a reflection of the red figure and why or why not. Okay, the blue is the light one, just remember. So the blue is the light. Okay, so is this a reflection? Well, yes, because this point is now here. It's like a mirror image. Okay, so I've taken it and I flipped it over. This one I flipped it over. So it's basically changing the location. Okay, so I've taken it and I flipped it over. So this is yes, okay, because the red figure, and really we went this way because we went from the red to the blue. So the red figure can be flipped to form the blue figure. Okay. Okay, and then B, if you look to get from here to here, okay, well that's not a flip, that's a translation. Okay, so no, this is a translation. Okay, so go ahead and you need to pause the video now. Okay, you shouldn't be doing all of your U-tries at the end. You need to be doing them as you go through. Okay, so tell whether it's a reflection. So remember, blue is a reflection of this. So you're going from this one to this one, this one to this one, this one to this one, and say if it's a reflection of the red figure or not. And then explain why or why not. Okay? Okay, here's our key idea, okay? And so at the beginning of this topic, we talked about we reflected those points, and we talked about when I reflect in the x-axis, the x stays the same, okay, and you take the opposite of the y. So the x is the same, those are equal, and then the y is the opposite. It's not necessarily negative, because if y starts as negative, you end up being positive. You take the opposite, okay? And then when you reflect in the y-axis, the y stays the same, but the x gets the opposite. Okay, so, and we talked about the original figure and an image are congruent. Okay, so over here you'll see that these are reflected, and you've got the primes. Okay, now this has double prime, and I kind of talked about this with 8th hour, but really this should only be single prime because you should only double prime if you are reflecting an image that's already prime. Okay, so you shouldn't have double prime unless you're reflecting this image, which we're reflecting this original figure again, so it still should just be 1 prime. Okay. Okay, so the vertices of a triangle are -1, 1, -1, 3, and 6, 3. Draw the figure and its reflection in the x-axis. What are the coordinates of the image? Okay, so -1, 1, -1, 3, and 6, 3. Ooh, that goes across. Okay, so there's that figure. Okay, and I'm reflecting over the x-axis. So I'm going to write out my coordinates so that I can make sure I plot them in the right spot. Okay, so I'm reflecting over the x-axis, which means my x is the same and my y is opposite. Okay, so x is the same, y is opposite. So then B starts at -1, 3. So it's going to go to -1, -3. And then C is at 6, 3. And so when I reflect it, okay, same, opposite. So same x, opposite y. Okay, so -1, -1. Oh, oops, I forgot to label my points up here. Okay, so don't forget to label your points. So then I know that you know which one is which. Okay, so this is A prime. B prime is at -1, -3. And then C prime is here. Okay, so there's my new figure. Okay, so we're going to do example 3, and then you'll do this you try on the back, okay, which has both practice for example 2 and 3. Okay, so excuse me. So the vertices of a quadrilateral are -2, 5, -1, -1, -4, 2, and -4, 4. Now we're reflecting over the y-axis, which means my x is the opposite and my y is the same. Okay, so -2, 5, that's P. -1, -1, that's Q. -4, 2, that's R. And -4, 4 is S. So it's a quadrilateral, which just means it has 4 sides. So it doesn't necessarily have to have a beautiful shape. Okay, it's just a quadrilateral, so that's 4 sides. Okay. Okay, so now I'm reflecting in the y-axis. So I'm going to take it and I'm going to flip it this way. Okay, so P starts at -2, 5. And it's going to map. Okay, so this is like the mapping. Okay, if I use that word map. Okay, I'm mapping it to the image P prime, which x is opposite, so this becomes 2 and the y stays the same. Then Q is -1, -1, and that maps to Q prime, which x is the opposite and y stays the same. R, which is at -4, 2, maps to R prime, which is going to be opposite of x, which is going to be 4, and the y stays the same. And then S is -4, 4, and that's going to map to S prime, which we're going to take the opposite of -4, which is 4, and keep the y value. Okay, so I'm going to plot those points. So P is at 2, 5. So that's P prime, I'm sorry. Okay, Q prime is at 1, -1. R prime is at 4, 2. And S prime is at 4, 4. Okay, so there's my quadrilateral. And if you look, they look the same. Okay, this side looks a little bit different, but okay, same length here, same length here. And it's the same distance from the y-axis. Up here, I was the same distance from the x-axis. Okay? Okay, go ahead and do the U tries. These are each going to be plus 1 point on your quick check. Okay. I forgot to write that in there. So on your quick check. So you have 1 point here for all of those, getting all those right, and then 1 point here for each of A, B, and C. Okay?